Hello, hello, fish fam and guppy fans. Wanted to make a quick video for a friend who requested that I kind of do just a general guppy breeding video for you guys, and how I breed and how I kind of choose my breeders. So it's going to be kind of a hodgepodgey sort of video on how I breed in general, as quick as I can go over it. If there is anything specific that you'd like to see from the video or topic that you'd like for me to go in further, just simply request it and I'll do it for you. Alright, so this is my Nebula Steel tank. It's my most established tank. And it's a little bit of a mess, but I like to keep my tanks messy because that's what my bottom feeder's like. So the first thing I'll say with guppy breeding is a lot of people will use these nets to try to capture babies in. And as you can see, I do have one in the tank, but it's actually holding a bunch of cell mills that I have that I want to sell, that I pulled out for this weekend. I have a fish trade show that I'm going to, and I wanted to take some males with me, so I pulled some. They're just kind of hanging out. And so that's why I have that in there. I actually never use these for putting females in, mainly because it super stresses them out, and I have actually lost some females that way. I'm not going to go ahead and tell you you're horrible if you do it, or you're definitely going to lose. Like, when I was a kid, I used them just fine. My first set of guppies I had from the pet store, put them in there all the time, and they were perfectly fine. So, you know, it's certainly up to you the way you want to do it. I just like things as natural as possible, so that's how I breed. My tanks are messy. My parameters are not always perfect. I really like a good hardy guppy, so I don't pamper them. I don't baby them. I don't, you know, change 50% of their water every day and super try to keep pristine conditions for them. I don't want that, because when I ship them to people, they die, because people don't do that. So, you know, I change my water. I do change my water 2 to 3 times a week. I do a 20% water change simply because I feel like that's the easiest way to keep up with it. It keeps it clean enough that they're not going to die, but not so clean that, you know, they're going to die when I send them to other people. Also, excuse my voice a little bit. I have a cold, so it's a little rough. But I definitely try to keep a little bit dirtier tank just for people. As you can see, they live with other things. I have Cory cats in here. My Corys are showing off for you guys. I've got a colony of 6. I'm trying to get them to breed. So I'm working on getting stuff for them to breed safely. And I've got my little colony going. I've got shrimp in here. And I've got Malaysian trumpet snails in here. And I'm getting ready to put some ram's horn back in. I did have a problem, funny story. I had a problem with them dying in here, and I couldn't quite figure it out. I figured out one of my foods actually had copper in it. So, I nixed that food because, of course, anything with copper in it is going to kill your shrimp and your snails. And so I figured out what was going on with this tank, so I'm going to throw them back in here. But I do have pink ram's horns that I put in here. There's some pond snails trekking around in here. It is literally like a little ecosystem going on. So as far as guppies go, heavily planted tank, I super recommend it. Even if you don't want to do live, you can do artificial. They make spawn mops, and I'll do a video on those. Spawn mops and fry hides, I actually make them. So I'm getting ready to take a bunch to the fish sale. But you can do artificial if you really hate live plants. I personally just do super easy to care for plants that are hard to kill, mainly because I'm lazy and don't feel like keeping up with plants. I don't do CO2 injectors and all that. So a little bit of what I have in here. Got Java moss. You pretty much have to set it on fire to kill it. So I literally started out with a portion size that was maybe about the size of a quarter. And I pull Java moss off this all the time, put in other tanks to give to people, to sell, that kind of thing. I have some Anacaris. It's looking a little rough. I'm not sure what's going on with my Anacaris. I constantly have to trim it because it constantly goes kind of yellowy on me. Honestly, I think my light just simply isn't strong enough because it's a very old fluorescent light. But I'm too stubborn to get another fluorescent light because I'm getting ready to buy quite expensive LED lights that are specifically for plants. So I'm a little too stubborn to replace it for 20-40 bucks and then have to go buy an LED. So my plants are just getting by. Literally, like I said, easy to grow. We have Guppy nausea grass in the foreground here. Again, I started out with a tiny bit of that and it has grown like crazy. In the background there, the lily pad looking plant. You can come over here and see if you can see it. That is Brazilian pennywort, also pretty easy to grow, likes to hang out at the surface. This mess of a plant is actually hornwort, and it sheds a lot, mainly because I don't think my light's strong enough. So it can be a little messy, but gosh, the babies love it. They really love it, and it grows crazy. It's hanging out at the top. It's actually blocking a lot of the light for the lower plants here, but as you can see, it is all over my tank, and they love it. I have Java ferns, not really for the baby guppies at all, just because I think they're pretty and I grow them, propagate them. As you can see, these guys are not even connected to anything. They're literally just floating in the tank. I want to get some nice driftwood for them, but I'm super picky and I haven't found anything I really love yet. As you can see here, clearly, by the little babies swimming around, I let my fry be born in the tank that the parents are in. Mainly because it's way less stressful for the parents and way less stressful for the fry. And again, if I have like, excuse me, if I have a lot of fry, like if I'm getting like 40 and 50 in here, it's just not enough for my tank to support it. So we'll go ahead and move them to a grow out tank. I have a 55 split that I use for a grow out tank. And so I'll go ahead and kind of move them over there. But for the most part, I let the babies grow up in here. They seem to be a whole lot happier. They live pretty well, high on the hog. They do eat the little microbacteria that are on all the live plants. They'll eat the little food that I put in there. I do pulverize and powderize my food for them. I give them decapsulated brine shrimp eggs. They get frozen cyclops. I'm trying to think what all I feed. I do throw algae wafers in there, though the babies rarely ever get them because they don't really go down to the bottom. I have some just stuff in here that I throw down for my cory colony and for my shrimp. You see there's just some bottom feeder pellets, and that's actually a little shrimp pellet there. So the parents pick on it, but the babies really don't. They mostly stick to the cyclops, the powdered food, and the decapsulated brine shrimp eggs that float on the top. So I literally do nothing. I don't move the parents at all. I don't do any of that. I just let them have them naturally. I don't ever really lose females to birth. I think I might have lost one in the last year. So they're definitely a lot happier. The babies are happier. They raise up better. They have a lot more to eat. And they just tend to be kind of happier. So that's how I let my babies grow up. I never put them in a net or anything like that. Again, to each his own. If there's a strain that I'm really working with, like back when I was working with my magenta line, I would use a fry trap or breeder trap. It's called either one. It's made out of plastic canvas mesh, and essentially you circle it around. I'll do a video on it for you guys, but you circle it around and put a bottom on it and then put a rock on it. And it's like a big tube that comes up in the tank, and you put your parents in there and they have the babies, and the babies swim out of the whole tube. If you have voracious fry eaters, I would definitely do that. Mainly because the tube is quite large, so it's not quite as confining as a small fry box would be. And the babies can swim out of the holes into the tank. So it's a little less stressful for the parents, and the babies can still get away and swim away. And again, I'll do a video on that for you guys. I did have somebody request it, so I'll definitely do that. As you can see by this fry loves to come out. I don't know if it's the same fry or just different fry, but they're all the same color and around the same age. So this dude comes out all the time. And as you can see by that, these guys are not voracious fry eaters, because he would have been lunch a long time ago. Whatever this particular batch of fry is, they love to swim out in the open. They're totally not afraid of their parents at all. And they just kind of come out, like that one's even like right by her mouth. They really just don't care, because I think they've learned that the parents don't care. So they're out constantly. As far as selecting my breeders goes, as you can see, I do colony breed, in that I have my females all together with just a male, and he breeds them all. Typically, I'll have 6 to 8 females and 1 or 2 males in the tank. And I did have 2, it's kind of hard to see, but the guy here with the blacker outlining and the rainbow tail, he was in here as well, but 2, they were just bothering the females, and I don't like my females to be harassed. 1 male, they can, you know, they can pretty much get away from him, and they have a lot more space, because they were just kind of all hovering in a corner trying to get away from the males. So I kind of just tossed him in there in a timeout with the others. I think I might sell him this weekend. So I basically let the fry grow up here until I can sex them. And once I can sex them, I pull them out and put them in a respective grow out tank. I have a, like I said before, I have a 55 that's split, so it's a lot of room. I run them at a little bit higher temperature with a lot of room and feed frequently, just so they'll grow quickly. And essentially from my grow out tank, I don't really keep up with generations too much. I don't super line breed, which line breeding is where you have like female A, female B, and then female A will drop babies, and you grab her babies out and put them in a tank by themselves, and essentially like keep the 2 separate lines separate. So you have A and a B. You keep them separate for 3 or 4 generations and choose your babies and backbreed or whatever you'd like to do in that instance. But you keep the 2 lines separate, and then you cross the lines every now and then. And I don't tend to do that just because I am working with supremely limited tank space personally. I'm not a giant breeder. I don't have a fish room. I have a fish house. All my tanks are all throughout my house. Mainly because I don't have a space that would even be suitable for a fish room. I have a crawl space house, so I have to be careful where I distribute my tanks and how much weight is where. And also a fiance that would not be pleased if our entire house was fish tanks. So I am working on limited space, so I do selective, what I like to call selective colony breeding. I do grow them out, and then once they're old enough, typically around 2 to 3 months, I will essentially choose who I want for breeding. And what I kind of do is I will select for body shape first. I like a shorter, stockier guppy. These guys came to me with really thin, long peduncles, and I've been kind of working on getting them shorter. So I like a shorter, stocky guppy. They hold their tails better, and they'll tend to live longer because they're not taking as much effort to swim around. I like super hardy guppies. I never choose anything that's laying on the bottom. Like some babies, you'll notice what I like to call strugglers. They'll lay on the bottom. They don't really swim around a whole lot. I go ahead and just cull those immediately because I don't want that in my line. And it's not much of a life for baby guppy anyway. They kind of hang out on the bottom and struggle their whole life. So I go ahead and cull them out, and I do feed those to other fish. I know you can post the hate if you want, but those get fed to other fish. And that's like as soon as I see them. So as soon as they're born, I give them like a day or 2. If they're not up, they're culled. If I see any deformities like crooked backs, bent spines, anything like that, they get culled. And then I let the rest, so pretty much if it doesn't have a deformity, it grows up and lives. And what I do with those is I let them grow up to a month old in this tank, and then as soon as they're able to be sexed, like as soon as I see the males gonopodium growing, or as soon as I see that one is clearly going to be a female, they are pulled and separated in the 55 fry tank. And essentially it's a male and a female side, because I like to try to keep mine separate so that when I put them in the colony, I know who they're breeding. And again, sometimes I'll breed daughters back to fathers, that kind of thing. I rotate my colony out. So when I choose breeders, I essentially will take the old breeders and retire them I tend to do typically around 6 to 7 months. I'll pull and retire breeders just because they do tend to have smaller fry at that point that are less viable. And what I do with old breeders is I do not kill them. I retire them. So they go in my community 55 for males, and females get separated out and sent to a friend who has an all-female tank. And obviously they still have babies, but she doesn't keep babies. She has fish in there that actually eat the babies. So I just send them to her to kind of live out the rest of their days, happy and free. And I'll rotate out who's in here. Now, when you straight colony breed, or don't like super selectively colony breed, every once in a while I'll see a male and a female, and I'll definitely want that, but I may not want to throw them in my colony. So I'll take them out, and true to line breeding, I'll put them in a breeding box for a few days, let them breed, and then put them in the colony, and I might remove my male even. I don't always necessarily have a male in my colony. Just this particular male I like a lot, so I threw him in here. Sometimes I do selectively breed, more so of my mosaics than my nebulas. My nebulas are just kind of a fun side project that I really like. The mosaics are more kind of carefully bred to make sure that they maintain their fins, things like that. These guys are more fun, personally, because I can kind of experiment with them a little bit, and there's no set like color or set standard for their fins or anything like that. Like with a Dumbo mosaic, you have to have the large fins and that kind of thing. So if I'm being honest, these guys are probably my favorite just because I get to play with them a lot more. But so, you know, I might not always have a male. If you want to select it, super selectively breed, you might get a breeding box or a small 5-gallon tank, something like that, or 10 split up, and put males and females in there. And then just pull the females and put them in here to give birth. That would be like super selectively colony breeding, which is what I tend to do with my Dumbo mosaics. So, and I keep up a little bit more with their generation, but I still don't do quite what like show people do. And that's just simply because I don't have the room or the time to empty 50 million tanks. So, again, look for what I like. I start around 2 to 3 months. Typically more around 3 months, I'll really start culling. And for 2 to 3 month culls, for anything that doesn't have a deformity, I don't kill it. Simply because there's no reason to. It's not going to have a hard life. It's just not good enough for my breeding program. I'm super selective in my breeding program. So typically only 1 to 2 babies per generation really come into my breeding program. So I split my culls a couple different ways. The first way is what I'll do, I'll call it the first cull, which is all of the babies that have deformities. And then second culls are when they're around 3 months old. I pick based on shape, body, fins, color. It's all kind of a factor. And the ones that I would breed in my own fish room, I go ahead and pull out. And I keep those in, well, I don't pull them out. I keep them in the tank. And then the ones that I see are maybe not living up to par, maybe they're a little thinner peduncles, a little longer peduncles, maybe the body's a little long. There might be like a slight thing, like maybe there's a bump in the head, something like that. I will pull those out, and maybe the color's not bright enough, it's not there, or something like that. I'll pull all those out and take them to the pet store. And a lot of people won't take their guppies to the pet store. They'll just cull them. They'll cull them where they kill them. But I like to take mine to the pet store because really, I mean, I don't care if people breed. I'm not trying, you know, people are breeding nebula steels and Dumbos. I'm not going to keep people or corner the market on that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm breeding for fun and selling on the side. So I take mine to the pet store, and they give me a little bit of money for them and some store credit, which is good enough for me at that point, because those are not good enough that I would feel, if I don't want to breed at my fish room, I'm not selling it to other people on mine. So I keep everything that I would want to breed, and then I choose literally 1 or 2 from what I would want to breed, and all of the rest get sold online, and those are my third culls. Those are the ones that are good enough to be breeders. I just don't have room for them, if that makes sense. So those are the ones that I sell online. And that's pretty much how I do it. If you have any other questions or anything you really want to know specifically, you can ask. In terms of feeding the adults, I know I had somebody ask that. I do all I previously said. Plus, I'll throw some veggies in every now and then. I feed de-shelled peas. I have a good quality Guppy flake that I got from Everything Aquatics. I like their food quite a bit. So I have a good quality Guppy flake from them that I mix in. I feed Sero Nips a little bit. I kind of mix it up a lot. They like a variety of diet, and I found they grow better with a variety of diet. I do feed them 3 to 6 times a day. I really would like to get automatic feeders, so I make sure that they're being fed the same time 4 times a day. But they're quite expensive, so I'm working on investing in that. Once I sell some more guppies and get some more money in, I'll probably put it into getting automatic feeders so that I'm sure that they're being fed 4 times a day. Because no matter what you say, even if you're home all day, you're like, I'm going to feed them 4 times a day, every day, and something comes up and you forget, and they only end up getting fed twice a day, or, you know, that kind of thing. I do always make sure I feed twice a day. Most of the time I feed 3 times a day. I'll admit rarely I feed 4 times a day. And I just feed small amounts. Don't feed a whole lot if you feed that much. Feed real small amounts. Think of what you would normally feed them. If you were to put all the food for them in for a day, like, because most people, they'll be like, oh, feed your fish once a day. Think of that amount, but split it up into 4 times. And that really tends to help them grow better because they digest the food a lot longer because they have more of the food to digest in their digestive system. And they pull the nutrients out of that, which helps them grow. So that is everything I can think of currently. If there is something that you really, really want to know, hit me up in the comments or shoot me a message. Let me know that you'd like to see a video on it. I will say I keep my temperature between about 75 and 79, depending on the tank. Water parameters, I try to keep my water, you know, 0 ammonia, 0 nitrates, and then below 40 ppm for nitrates, or 0 nitrates, sorry. And however, no tank is perfect. It will fluctuate, and I don't pristinely keep my tanks because I don't believe in that, because when I sell, they'll be too weak to do anything for other people. They'll die because their tanks aren't pristine. So I do keep my tanks dirty, keep my tanks messy, do let the stuff fluctuate as it naturally will. No cycle stays perfect forever. They do fluctuate. I do pretty much natural stuff, don't really have much stuff. I do a sponge filter in all my tanks. I really like those. A little hard to see with the glare, but I have a dual sponge filter in all my tanks, and I absolutely love them. I'll do a little bit of an in-depth video on that, because I did have somebody wanting like an in-depth explanation of a sponge filter. So that is pretty much it. I do 20 gallons for the most part for my colonies, and then the 55 split in half for my grow outs. And I'm hoping maybe this summer to try tubbing, where you have like an outdoor tub. We'll see on that. Have to convince the fiance that it's a good idea, which could be a little difficult. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions or comments or anything, go ahead and feel free to post it. And I will see you guys next time, fish fans.